An elite U.S. Air Force pilot was just arrested because he did the one thing you really shouldn't do after leaving the service, which is training your Chinese military counterparts, allegedly. The man's name is Gerald Eddie Brown Jr., and he had a fairly solid career in the U.S. military for 24 years, starting in 1972. He spent 24 years in the U.S. Air Force, and reportedly he had vast experience with the F-35 stealth jet, as well as with America's nuclear delivery systems. Here was how the DOJ, the Department of Justice, described his service. Quote, Brown served for over 24 years in the U.S. Air Force, leaving active duty in 1996 with the rank of major. During his lengthy military career, Brown commanded sensitive units with responsibility for nuclear weapons delivery systems, led combat missions, and served as a fighter pilot instructor and simulator instructor on a variety of fighter and attack aircraft, including the F-4 Phantom II, the F-15 Eagle, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, and the A-10 Thunderbolt II Warthog. Now, Gerald did retire in the year 1996, but he didn't totally step away. After retiring, he worked as a commercial pilot for cargo planes, but he also continued to work with the U.S. Air Force in the capacity of both an advisor as well as an instructor. Quote, after retiring, Brown then served as a commercial cargo pilot and, most recently, as a contract simulator instructor for 2 different U.S. air defense contractors, training U.S. military pilots on flying the A-10 and the F-35 Lightning II Joint Strike Fighter. But apparently, Mr. Gerald Brown was also moonlighting on the side by training Chinese military pilots for the PLA, which is, again, one of those few things that you really should not do as a retired Air Force pilot, which is training our biggest adversary on our flight tactics. But that's what happened, allegedly. And here's where I need to introduce to you another man. This man's name is Steven Su Bin. And if that name sounds weirdly familiar to you, that's because back in the year 2014, Steven was arrested over in Canada and extradited to the United States in order to face charges of cyber espionage. And according to those earlier indictment papers, here is what Steven did, again, back in 2014. Quote, Steven Su Bin, a China-based businessman in the aviation and aerospace fields, was indicted in the criminal conspiracy to steal military technical data, including data related to the C-17 strategic transport aircraft and certain fighter jets produced for the U.S. military. Basically, back in 2014, Steven was the inside guy in the West, helping Chinese military hackers target Boeing and Lockheed Martin in order to steal the designs for things related to the F-22, the F-35, as well as the C-17 aircrafts. He was eventually sentenced to 4 years in prison, and after getting released, he reportedly went back to China. And the reason that I bring up Mr. Steven Bin's story is because Steven was the contact for Gerald Brown Jr., the Air Force pilot. Here's what the Department of Justice said regarding what was happening behind the scenes starting in August of 2023. Quote, in or around August 2023, Brown began arranging the terms of his contract to train Chinese military pilots using a co-conspirator to negotiate with Steven Su Bin, a Chinese national who, in 2016, pled guilty to conspiring to hack into the computer networks of major U.S. defense contractors and steal sensitive military and export control data for the People's Republic of China. Throughout these communications, Brown consistently stated his intent to train PRC military pilots in combat aircraft operations. Which, by the way, just as an aside, really amazing that Steven here was caught in Canada, extradited to the U.S., served 4 years in prison for essentially treason, but then when he was released from treason, he goes back to China and almost immediately starts recruiting American fighter pilots to train Chinese military pilots. It's amazing. It almost feels to me, at least, like maybe 4 years in prison did not teach him the lesson that it was supposed to. All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment, I'd like to introduce our sponsor and my own personal gold dealer, American Hartford Gold. Now, as soon as the latest round of tariffs hit, almost immediately, the stock market hit some serious waves, we could say. It became super turbulent, very volatile, and of course, these conditions don't just affect Wall Street. They affect all of us with our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I want to introduce a company that I trust and I use myself to help secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move their assets into something tangible, something you can actually hold, physical gold and physical silver. 2 precious metals that help me sleep better at night, knowing that I have a hedge against all those brilliant decisions being made over in Washington. Now, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, they have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your doorstep, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive buy one, get one deal for my viewers. When you call them and mention my name, Roman, for every 1 ounce of gold that you purchase, you can get 1 ounce of free silver. And so take advantage of this special offer. Either call 866-242-2352 or simply text Roman to 65532. That's again, 866-242-2352 or text Roman to 65532. I'll also throw their information. It'll be down in the description box below. Regardless though, reading through this criminal complaint from the DOJ, it's not exactly clear whether there was an ideological reason for Mr. Brown's actions, or perhaps he was just in a late stage of life and was just happy to train fighter pilots once again. And the reason that I say it this way is because included here is a few snippets of Mr. Brown's discussions with his Chinese counterparts, and here's how they go. Quote, in the resume he prepared for his application, Brown wrote his objective as instructor fighter pilot. A co-conspirator told Brown that he hoped Brown would be assigned to my base, but otherwise you'll go where is the local equivalent as the U.S. Air Force Weapons School. Later, he stated to a co-conspirator that upon his arrival in China, now I have the chance to fly and instruct fighter pilots again. And so that's basically how it began. In August of 2023, Mr. Brown began arranging this training in China with Stephen, and within a few months, by December of 2023, he began traveling to China to actually offer this instruction in person. Quote, in December of 2023, Brown traveled to China to begin his work training PRC military pilots. After his arrival, Brown answered questions for 3 hours about the U.S. Air Force on his first day in the PRC, and then, on his second day, prepared and presented a brief about himself for the People's Liberation Army Air Force. Brown remained in China until he traveled to the United States in early February 2026. So he basically stayed there for 3 full years until he returned to the U.S. just last month, and exactly what you would think happened. He was arrested by the feds in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and he was charged with a fairly serious crime, violating the Arms Export Control Act, which I will mention, I previously assumed, just based on the name of that law, that the law only referred to physical weapons. But for this case, I read the text of the law, and it does specify that selling military knowledge and know-how without prior U.S. government approval is also illegal. If found guilty, Mr. Brown faces the prospect of upwards of 20 years in prison, alongside a potential fine that can go as high as $1 million US. He is, of course, I should mention, innocent until proven guilty. And then also, secondly, a big shout out to our new coffee sponsor. Hunter's Blend Coffee is a great brand. It's run by American patriots. They cut out the middleman and ship the coffee directly to your doorstep, saving you a lot of money in the process. And the coffee is great. It's super fresh. I myself drink it almost every morning. It's roasted and packaged right here in the US by people who actually share your values. And so check them out. The link will be down there in the description box below. Now, alongside the charging documents, here was a statement that was released by the Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterintelligence and Espionage Division. Quote, Gerald Brown, a former F-35 Lightning II instructor pilot with decades of experience flying U.S. military aircraft, allegedly betrayed his country by training Chinese pilots to fight against those he swore to protect. The Chinese government continues to exploit the expertise of current and former members of the U.S. Armed Forces to modernize China's military capabilities. This arrest serves as a warning that the FBI and our partners will stop at nothing to hold accountable anyone who collaborates with our adversaries to harm our service members and jeopardize our national security. And so there you have it. I will be following this case as it unfolds in the court system, and I'll give you any updates as they become available. But in the interim, for one, all the links to the PDFs of the court documents, they will be available down in the description box below. You can peruse them and read the details for yourself if you'd like. Secondly, please do smash those like and subscribe buttons so that this video can get more play from the algorithm. Thank you so much for that. And thirdly, I'd love to know your thoughts. Is the prospect of facing 20 years in prison enough for something like this? And also, generally, is it starting to feel like the people who get caught doing these things for China, are they getting really light sentences? I mean, even that guy that Mr. Brown was coordinating with, the one named Stephen Bin, he was only given 4 years behind bars for helping the Chinese military hack into our contractors and extract the schematics for U.S. military fighter jets. He was given just 4 years. And then afterwards, he goes right back to China and continues his work, recruiting Americans like Mr. Brown to train Chinese fighter pilots. I mean, that's essentially treason. Maybe it's treason by another name, but it is treason, and he was given 4 years for that sentence, for that crime, and it's a sentence that didn't really teach him a lesson, obviously, since he went right back to China. And with the immunity that China affords him, because there's no extradition treaty with the US, he went, boom, right back to recruiting American fighter pilots. And so, I don't know, is it starting to feel like you get caught doing these types of things for China, you get a slap on the wrist, and then some U.S. official comes out and says, hey, this is an excellent case to showcase how we're taking this very seriously and setting an example for anyone that's thinking about doing this for China, and then the guy gets 4 years. Or, for instance, those, it's another case, and there's more details there and more nuance, but those Chinese college students, the scholars that were importing those fungi and those pathogens into the U.S. while they were flying in. And they are getting off, by the way. One of them was recently just deported back to China without facing any jail time. And the others are still going through the system, but it's kind of looking like they might get either light sentences or also just get deported. And so I don't know. I don't know. I'm happy at the prospect that our intelligence services are good enough that they can find something like this, that, former U.S. Air Force pilot is over in China training the PLA military pilots. Crazy. So they can find them and arrest them, allegedly. But at the same time, I am getting a little unnerved by the extremely light sentences that these people are receiving. We'll never know we will know later with Mr. Brown how much he receives, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Is it equivalent? Am I perhaps reading a bit too much into it and I should look at it on a case-by-case basis? Or am I correct that looking at it kind of from a broad overview, they are getting sentences that are too light? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you think. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed. Most importantly, stay free.